Chapter 18. Alarmed, Daniel whirled around to find Director Davis approaching him. He couldn't fathom what she would be doing here this late unless she had been waiting for him. But how could she have known? Did she have a trace on him? His heart sank as he realized he'd failed already. But she didn't appear hostile, standing with arms crossed and head angled in a display more consistent with curiosity and assessment. Confused, he took a step back. "Director Davis, why are you here?" Again, he'd said something stupid to her. Between the two of them, he was the one more out of place. She smiled and unfolded her arms, apparently content to ignore the incongruity of his question. "Waiting for you, of course." He stared at her. "What do you mean?" "I had an idea you'd come." She waved a vid to his data lens. He watched himself leave his apartment, the visual time-stamped less than an hour before. "You bugged my home." "Yes, I had no intention of standing out here all night on the off chance you'd show up." "But how did you know where I was going?" She surveyed his apparel. "You aren't exactly dressed for a casual stroll. You have 'breaking and entering' written all over you, and this seems like the most obvious target for such activity." "I hoped to avoid the breaking." He muttered on his joke under his breath, but Jada caught it and smiled. His fear began to give way to annoyance. "Director Davis, what's going on? What is it you think I'm doing?" "I assume you were breaking your wife out of the containment lockup." She spoke as if they were discussing dinner plans. "But don't worry, I'm not here to oppose you." As she said it, he realized he'd already figured this out 2 minutes ago. If she was planning to arrest him, she would have done it the moment he approached the agency building. "I'm starting to understand that, but I'm not sure why." "You think I want her in the lockup? There's something going on. I'm afraid we're being misled about a better way, and she isn't going to work it out in jail. I can't get her out, but I think you can." He narrowed his eyes. "Why do you say that?" Davis pointed to the staff handle at his waist. "You're the talented modder behind the talented agent, the kind of programmer who can hack our systems." She wasn't asking. His face flushed. "You know?" "For years, in fact. I'm not unobservant, Mr. Flynn, and I've read all about you. You were a high-performing computer science student at the university, an unusual program for a young man to be in, but not unheard of. You applied at Feeney, but they rejected you. Even with a diploma, it's a competitive field, and many employers trust women as more reliable software developers. You drifted around for a few years, taking odd jobs, but not landing anything you liked. After you and Anna married, you tried to get us to hire you, but we didn't have an open position." "I was told that a lot." "I'm sure you were. In the end, you settled on teaching middle school history, a respectable profession, and one which values the talents of men, unlike programming. But of course, you never stopped writing code. You just started doing it for Anna. She became your own personal calling. I can't say I blame you. You couldn't do it for corporations, so you did it for love. Some would say that's a more noble aspiration. Anna was a good agent before she met you, but after, well, she went over the top. She closed more cases than anyone else. That's why I had to have her back after you two had Jason. I put her with Agent Yang then, but Yang turned out to be a bit of a limiting factor. She's smart, but unyielding, and Anna had to be careful around her. Agent Williams fits better. She has her own set of skills, but is less likely to be concerned about Anna using your mods." Daniel shook his head in amazement. "You knew all along." "I did." "And you anticipated I'd break her out." "I thought you'd try. You two have always pushed against the rules. I didn't expect you to take her arrest sitting down. Whether or not you can pull it off is another story, but I figured I'd give you an edge, as long as it doesn't come back on me. So, after you left Anna yesterday, I've been watching to see if you would come out to play, and here you are." He searched her face. "If you don't take me in right now, you're putting yourself at risk. If I do this and anyone finds out you talk to me, they won't. I have ways of covering my tracks. The only risk I have is you, and if Anna trusts you, I do too." "Fair enough. What is this edge?" She sent him a file, which he opened to reveal schematics for the agency building, including the data center and the containment lockup. But her schematic contained more than just structural information. A live feed overlay showed the positions of everyone inside. Anna, her guards, and another prisoner all appeared with names next to them. He responded with a low whistle, appreciating the boon. Thank you. Of course. I only hope you have a way to deal with security. He cracked a smug smile. For that, I have Zhao's code from the sword Anna gave me. He pulled back the sleeve of his shirt to reveal a bracelet around his wrist. I took one of these into the lockup when I visited yesterday. No one searched me beyond a light pat-down, and I had it very well hidden. I guess they're confident that if I had an MMD, it wouldn't be much use in the lockup. Davis nodded. Overconfidence can make even the best people sloppy. I had it programmed to poke the system and see if I could get in. I used the authorization routine from the sword, and it still holds up. I had a trigger set to download the schematics so I could find Anna's cell later. I didn't, however, get the live feed, since I couldn't devise an automated routine smart enough to find it. Jada's expression grew pensive. I wonder how Zhao acquired that kind of access. That's way above even my clearance. Agency building authorization routines are maintained centrally, and the MMD security team only gives them to people doing infrastructure work and changes them soon after. A good question for another day. For this day, I'm happy to have a master key to the basement. Jada studied the ground. So you intend to go in the same way as Zhao? Through the ceiling? Yes, I figured that's the most nonviolent way to go about this. I'm not the warrior of the family. Anna would approve of the nonviolence, I think. Daniel couldn't quite stifle a light laugh. I'm sure, though I dare say Lisa wouldn't. She has a flair for the dramatic. Indeed she does. I must say, if one of you is going to do this, I'm glad it's you. I spoke to her earlier. She's upset. She says she's going to quit. I'm not surprised. I also wouldn't be surprised if she tried to do what you're doing. Daniel considered this. She didn't suggest anything like that when we talked. Why would she? She has no idea you can hack our systems, and if she did, she wouldn't say so on a call. Fair points. Look, she became serious again. If you get caught, please don't involve me. I won't be able to help either of you as much as I'd want to. I understand. But if you do get her out, I'm sending you an address and an entry code. It's an off-the-books agency safe house that not even Guerrero is aware of. No one will look for you there, and you can plan your next steps without looking over your shoulders. She gestured the information to Daniel's data lens. He accepted it with a bit of shock, studying her face before filing it away. This is remarkable, Director Davis. Call me Jada. Your wife does. Okay, Jada. I appreciate this. I hadn't figured out where we'd go, and had hoped Anna might have some ideas, but this solves a big problem. One of many you'll have, but I'm offering what I have to give. Now, you'd better get on with your plan, whatever it is. I need to be somewhere visible, far away from here. That's a good idea. Be safe. After Jada left him, Daniel looked down at the grass and chose a position according to the schematic. Though she couldn't hear him, he spoke to Anna with quiet determination. All right, love. Here I come. I hope you're ready. He gestured with his hand, and the bracelets on his wrists vibrated. A hole grew in the ground before him, the dirt forming into a pile next to it. Drawing from these materials, as well as his PMC backpack, he assembled a ladder leading down to the server room. He began his descent, lowering his body until the hard metal ceiling of the data center blocked his progress. He connected to the security system, now within range, ran the authentication routine, and gestured again to remove the final blockage and finish extending the ladder to the data center floor. Continuing his downward progress, this time at a slower pace, he kept an eye both on the real environment and the security feed on his data lens. When he reached the bottom, he found himself in a room full of processor arrays and data storage units. White and clean, it provided a stark contrast to the dark night above. As Zhao and her partner had done, he took the cameras offline. However, he left Simon in place, having learned from their mistakes. Gesturing with the bracelets, he covered the hole. It would still be noticeable to anyone above ground who got close enough to look, but he didn't want a beam of light shining through like a beacon. In the dead of night, no one would be looking for dug-up grass. Adjusting the schematic overlaid with the live feed, he walked along the path to Anna's cell and stepped out into the hallway. Following it down to almost the end, he took a left turn through the second-to-last doorway, then moved to the spot located precisely above Anna's dot. According to the overlay, no guards stood near her at the moment, and none were moving. He got to work, using the bracelets to once again transfer the floor and the earth into another pile. His hole was soon carved all the way down, but the process hadn't been quiet. The shifting of the floor and rock had caused a deep rumble that would be audible to anyone in the basement levels. Indeed, the dots representing the guards had already started to collapse into Anna's cell with alarming speed. She would have to be fast. No light emanated from the other side of the hole, so he couldn't see all the way down, but he knew Anna was waiting for him to ascend the ladder. He assembled it rapidly and shouted down to her. "Come up now! The guards are heading toward you!" "I'm on my way!" Her voice, loud but not panicked, floated up to him, the sound stretched out by a touch of natural reverb. His anxiety mounted. The climb seemed to take forever, but in reality she took mere seconds to ascend the ladder and pull herself up to her feet. They didn't have the time, but she took it anyway, reaching over to hug him and whisper in his ear, "You are amazing." He smiled and kissed the top of her head, then handed her the staff handle and data lens from his backpack. "You'll want these." He started toward the door, tugging at her to come with him. She put the data lens over her eyes and held the weapon in her left hand as they moved. They'd taken 3 steps before the loud scream of an alarm echoed through the data center and pierced their ears. The guards had reached Anna's cell and realized what had happened. Daniel let go of her hand and they both broke into a run. They flew back down the hall, passing several doorways, including the one opening into the entry chamber. When they arrived at the room where Daniel had entered the data center, the blaring sound stopped, leaving an uneasy stillness in its wake. Anna frowned, and Daniel looked at her with creased eyebrows. Why would they cut the alarm off? She pointed at the ladder. "They have our location. We need to get out of here." He started climbing, Anna coming up right behind him. A glance at the live feed showed him 3 dots converging on their location. They would be here in moments. Just as he began to cross the ceiling threshold, the ladder dissolved out from under him, and he fell. He yelled out as he descended, with only dim awareness that his bracelets were vibrating. As he landed, his body didn't slam into the hard floor, but rather sank into a soft cushion. His bracelets had triggered to assemble an air pillow, sparing both of them certain injury. They rolled off onto their feet and turned to face the doorway where a dark-haired woman with olive skin stood looking over them, flanked by 2 agents wielding staffs. He recognized Yang as Anna's former partner and Ward from the evidence table and the altercation at the transport station. Guerrero's eyes drilled into him, and he felt exposed and vulnerable. "You aren't getting out that way, Mr. Flynn." He shivered involuntarily at the coldness in her tone and wondered how she and the agents had shown up so quickly. Had they been waiting for him, like Jada? The longer this evening went on, the less clever he felt. It seemed that everyone knew what he'd planned from the start. Anna deployed her staff and dropped down into a defensive stance, ready to fight. "You knew he was coming." Guerrero shrugged. "We thought your mater might break in and release you. We didn't expect it to be your husband. I'll admit, that part is a complete surprise to me." She looked at Daniel with something approaching sympathy. "You're in over your head, I fear." "That's nothing new." He managed a wry smile, then glanced at Anna. "You're going to have to do the heavy lifting here." "I've got you." She dashed forward and launched into a sweeping attack at Guerrero's feet. The director fell back while Yang and Ward advanced, Yang catching Anna's downward swing and countering with a blow of her own. Anna avoided the hit and then started a quick, wary retreat back toward Daniel. The agents moved at them in tandem. Anna shook her head at her former partner. "Carrie, you don't have to do this." "I do. You should know that about me." Daniel's mind worked furiously, and he took a few more steps back to gain enough distance, then enabled his concealment mod. He blinked out of view, mindful he would need to keep some space between them if he didn't want Yang or Ward to see him. For their part, they were so focused on Anna they didn't appear to notice what he'd done. If he and Anna had an advantage, it was that the agents would underestimate him. He couldn't fight, but he had his bracelets. He began circling around them, careful not to attract notice. Ward made a twisting gesture with his staff to fling a chair and a segment of a processor array flying at Anna. Daniel reacted without thought, motioning with the bracelets to send the items bouncing away. Anna didn't flinch, instead using the opportunity to ram her weapon straight into Ward's gut, doubling him over in pain. Yang used the opening created by Anna's attack to launch her own, but Daniel sent a data storage unit spinning toward her, forcing her to shift into an awkward defensive maneuver. He then changed his focus and lunged through the doorway to plow into Guerrero, surprising her as he entered her space and his invisibility dissipated. Offering little resistance, she fell backward down the hallway. He yelled over his shoulder to Anna. "This way. We have to go. The guards will be coming." And they were. His live feed showed their dots moving to the stairwell leading up from the lower basement level. Ward was still doubled over in pain, catching his breath, while Yang turned at the sound of Daniel's voice. Anna motioned with her staff to upend a processor array and tip it over at her, then flickered out of sight as she engaged her own concealment mod. It was time to run. As Yang dodged the falling equipment, Daniel bolted down the hall, adrenaline coursing through his body. He sensed Anna catching up with him as Guerrero shouted that they were getting away. Slowing for a moment, he picked a new program and triggered it, then resumed his mad dash. His backpack lightened as the matter left it and transformed into two large objects behind him. Anna grabbed his arm as they crossed into the entry chamber of the data center, and he pulled up short. The clatter of feet on metal rose through the stairwell next to the elevator. Against the wall, he whispered to her, close enough now that he could see her face despite the concealment mod. She registered his words with her eyes, then moved to flatten herself at the edge of the room. He joined her, then checked his bracelets and noted that they were low on power. He prayed they would last long enough for them to make it out of the data center. The door to the stairs vanished, and 5 lockup guards spilled out in a line. The leader, a woman with short-cropped hair and a tough face, halted and lifted up her left hand, causing the others behind her to pull up short. She scanned the room, taking her time to make a full sweep from one end to the other. If she focused too long on Anna and Daniel's location, she'd be sure to notice the shimmer of the field around them. Motion from the doorway drew everyone's attention, including the lead guard. 2 figures appeared who looked identical to Anna and Daniel, and he felt the shock in Anna's body next to him. This trick was new to her. He'd been working on it for several months, and this was its debut. The decoys weren't alive, of course, but programmed to move as if they were. In this case, like 2 people on the run. They didn't linger, but kept moving down the hallway in the direction of the ladder to Anna's cell. They must have been convincing, because the lead guard didn't hesitate to shout and rushed to the doorway. "Go after them! Now!" All 5 guards followed her lead, ignoring the spot where the real Anna and Daniel hid. Yang and Ward momentarily popped into view behind the facsimiles, and Yang pulled up short, pausing to let her eyes sweep the room. Ward stopped behind her, and Daniel tensed, afraid he and Anna had been detected. Then Yang nodded her satisfaction, and the pair continued on, joining the pursuit. "Let's go!" Anna's shout whispered to him, then darted toward the stairwell. Daniel followed her with as much speed as he could. They took the stairs 2 at a time and burst out onto the ground floor. The glass doors to the outside were sealed and locked, but Daniel's authorization routine did its trick, and with a wave they were disassembled into their storage container. Moments later, they were running through the clearer night, heading away from the agency. As they reached the next building and ran alongside it, Anna slowed to a jog. How long will those decoys last? Daniel slowed with her. He'd been struggling to match her pace, and now breathed in short, painful gulps of air. I'm sure the guards have already figured out what we did. They're only going to be seconds behind us, and I don't think I have enough juice to stay concealed much longer. Keep going. We can pause to rest soon, but you can't stop yet. Fire burned in Daniel's lungs, and bile rose in his throat as his body protested. They ran through the night, adrenaline driving them forward. Anna led him through twists and turns between buildings, in what seemed to be random directions. Daniel's bracelets were out of power now, so his concealment mod was offline. Anna had disabled hers as well. To his surprise, Daniel found that he could go on, and managed to do so without throwing up, at least not yet. After what felt like an eternity, she pulled him into an alcove, and they stopped. His body heaved with emotional and physical stress it hadn't been conditioned to handle. She placed her hand on his back. We can rest here. They'll put a net around us, but it'll be wide, and I can navigate us through it. Bent over, he stared at the ground, chest rising and falling. I trust you. While he recovered, Anna altered her clothes. She executed a program with her staff, and her lockup uniform morphed into a dark pair of sweatpants, a nylon shirt, and some running shoes, more comfortable and less visible. After a moment, Daniel glanced up and saw her staring back at him with a glowing smile. That was amazing! Those decoys! I've never seen anything like them. He tried for a laugh, though it came out more like a grunt, then struggled to straighten his back. I'm glad they worked. I'd planned to give them a more traditional test run, but never got the chance. It's a good thing you know how to handle that staff. Her eyes twinkled. We make a pretty good team. She scanned the area, serious again. I'm not sure where we go from here. I have that covered, if you can trust Jada. She tilted her head. Jada? I'm not following. He flicked the safe house address up onto her data lens. Here, I'll explain as we go. You're ready to start moving again? I'm not feeling safe as long as we're out here. I can agree with that. He gestured at a nearby path. Do we want cycles? We have enough materials for them. She shook her head. No, we need to stay off the paths. They're too exposed and we'd be too easily detected. He groaned, but understood, and they started moving again, this time at a less frantic pace. They had 15 miles to cover, which meant several hours of hiking lay ahead of them. Anna turned to him as they walked. "Tell me about this safe house. How is Jada involved?" Daniel explained to her about the conversation he'd had with Jada and how she'd known about his modding from the beginning. Anna shook her head with admiration. "She's always been sharp. I've wondered if she might guess I was using unauthorized mods, but I didn't think she'd figure you out. But I'm not shocked." Lines creased her forehead. "I suppose she didn't stick up for me with Guerrero because she thought you'd break me out. She had a scheme in the works." "I think so, unless you think it could be a trap?" "No way. She and I go way back, and that's why I couldn't understand her silence as Guerrero accused me. But it all makes sense. The thing that surprises me now is that I've never heard of agency safe houses, but I'm not going to question it at this point." "Won't Guerrero know about this place?" "You'd think she would, but off the books must be off the books. If Jada says it's safe, it's safe." It took them several hours, but they arrived at the building before sunrise, a modest structure only reaching 10 stories high. They took the elevator up to the second floor, where they entered a code Jada had provided and found a well-furnished apartment. Despite his exhaustion, this gave Daniel a burst of energy. He hadn't spared a thought as to what they might find here, but now he had two objectives on his mind, and the apartment provided a means to achieve both: a shower and a bed. Anna appraised him as he started stripping off his clothes. "I'm shocked you can even stand, much less have energy for a shower." "No one wants to sleep in a grimy, sweaty bed. Not you, not me. I intend to pass out for 3 days as soon as my head hits the pillow, and I want to be clean when it does." She grinned. "I agree, and I'm right behind you." When he did lie down, worn out but feeling fresh, Anna curled up at his back and he remembered nothing else until he awoke 11 hours later.